This is the MHS Pawdcast, the online radio voice of Metuchen High School.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second edition of the year of the MHS Pawdcast, the online radio voice of Metuchen High School. I'm Eddie Kalegi. Big day today. Superintendent Dr. Caputo will join us in a few minutes. Me and Joe Stibich will be talking to him and answering some of the important questions because this week we are returning to school on the hybrid basis, at least some of us are. And then Josh will join us. Fall sports for the first time since March. High school competition is returning to the Garden State. We'll be previewing all of that with all 7 of Metuchen's sports teams. We've got Julia Hirschfield here for the announcements. Before we get to that, though, you're doing all remote, which is something that I think it's 37% of the student body is doing. There's a lot of people doing it. So just take us through your decision to, just stay home for now.
I personally decided I was going to do all remote to ensure the safety of me and my family. I respect other people's decision, but that was just a decision that my family and I made. But I'm excited to see how it goes for everyone.
Yeah, it'll be definitely interesting. It's going to be tough for the teachers, too, balancing between people on Zoom and actually in the room. Anyway, let's transition over to the school announcements.
All right, thank you, Eddie. Optional in-person school with the AB hybrid schedule begins this Thursday with the A group in the building and Group B and fully remote students learning from home. If you are driving to school this year, even if you have done so previously, there are 2 new forms to fill out on Genesis to receive a parking placard to allow you to use the student lot. Lastly, tune into the Bulldog Report on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube on Saturday, October 10th at 1 to watch a live broadcast of Metuchen's first home football game of the season.
Thank you, Julia. Let's move into our interview now with Dr. Caputo. Well, next week, for the first time in 7 months, students will be back at Metuchen High School, and it's great to be joined by Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Caputo, just to update us on some of the news and just all the logistical things. Dr. Caputo, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Eddie. Thanks. Hi, Joe. Thanks for having me on today. So, yeah, we're excited with our A-week rumors coming back next week. We actually have about 40 students who have been phased in over the month of September. So we already have 40 students that have been getting regular daily instruction in the various 4 schools, which is going well. And we had about 70 students in the high school just this Wednesday for seniors for the College Board Senior SAT Day. So we are slowly getting students back, and we're super excited and looking forward to October 1st, when we expect to have about half of the 70% of students that'll be coming back. So we expect about a third of the students in each of our buildings on average come Thursday.
Yeah, certainly good also that you've been having the students coming in small spurts like that SAT, just to get acquainted with the whole system. But before we get into our questions, I'd be remiss if I don't ask you, how are you doing, and how are you and your family getting through everything, how crazy this year's been?
Thanks, Ed. I really appreciate that. Yeah, we're doing fine. It's difficult like everybody. I think we're doing better than most. My son's a junior at Rutgers, and that's certainly been a different experience. His junior year so far has all been online. Finished his sophomore year last year, did some summer work as well. And, he's contented and he's getting used to it, but he certainly misses being on campus. My daughter's a senior in Cranford at the high school, Cranford High School. So it's certainly not the senior year start that she expected. She's doing well. She got some really challenging classes and just had her back to school last night virtually. So we're doing well. My wife's a dental hygienist. She's been back at work with additional PPE. If you've been to the doctor or a dentist, you know the protocols that are going on there. So we're doing okay.
So if you wouldn't mind taking us through the planning process to get ready for our return on October 1st.
Sure. Obviously the planning process literally began last February when we were planning for what our shutdown would look like. At the same time, we knew there'd be a reopening. Some hope that it would be after the long weekend or in 2 weeks or after spring break. We always kind of knew that it wasn't going to be, but we kept planning for those interim stages along the way. Ultimately, as we got past spring break and into May, we pretty much were assured that we weren't going to be opening up until the new school year. So we're about 4 weeks after we wanted to open up, but we're excited that October 1st is here. The process has included everything from looking at how staff and students will be coming into buildings. We'll be doing temperature checks at the entrances. Students and staff have been filling out questionnaires about are they experiencing symptoms, have they traveled? Those will be in place. We have additional modifications in the building, the biggest being that we've broken the student body up. So the most we'll have at any time is half the school in person. That's the A week, B week process. As of the latest numbers, it looks about 70% of our students will be back in person. And of course, they're split basically into two groups. So it's about a 35% return in each week. So I think we're ready for that. Our teachers are certainly working on their remote instruction, and Thursday will bring a new challenge for them with not only teaching students remotely, we call them Zoomers, but they'll have roomers in front of them. So that will be a new challenge for them as well. I know they're up to the task, just like they were at the remote instruction this fall. Additional items, obviously, such as clubs and sports, we're trying to run as many of those as possible. Our sports teams have been practicing optionally in the summer, and then official practices beginning September 14th. So far, so good. We have scrimmages now. We've had some inter-squad games. We have scrimmages coming up beginning this weekend and next week. And then right after that, real games. We're trying to run as many clubs as possible. We approved the whole slate of them on the board agenda on Tuesday night. So many of your favorite clubs will be starting up next week. And there's some other ones that we have some logistics to work out, but they should be following soon behind that as well. It's a great time. We're taking everything very cautiously and carefully, but our hopes are high that we can provide some of what students have come to expect, both educationally and extracurricular wise as well.
Yeah, definitely a tough challenge. And you mentioned teachers having to adapt, in a 4-week span, from thinking that everybody will be there to having to be fully remote to having to do both at the same time. Do you think that has been the most difficult obstacle in terms of this preparation for a return for students, or is there other things up there?
Sure. No, I mean, instruction is why we're here, right? I mean, my first priority is safety and security. But once we have those, and that's a huge part of this too, then my next most important part is, the teachers that we put in front of kids, because that's the instruction, right? And we're here for the instructional purposes. So every step that we've taken, we've had that lens. We've looked through that lens of, what's right for student instruction. So certainly, teachers being asked to do a lot. They were asked to teach from home for their first time in their careers last spring. They were asked to teach from home and then in person this September. They've been forced to adapt to new safety COVID protocols as well. And now we'll be asking them next week to teach some students in front of them. And they've spent their careers doing that. And we're asking them to teach students online. And we've asked them for the last several months to do that, including back to last spring. But for the first time now, they'll have students in front of them and on screen at the same time. So it's a huge challenge. Like I said, I know they're up to it. And we've tried to provide some enhancements and protocols and some assistance where we can.
So you listed a whole bunch of struggles that the school has, thought of. How are we going to handle passing time and lunch?
Sure. So we've done a couple of things. So for example, we've made hallways and stairways one way when possible. Sometimes it hasn't been possible, but where it's possible, we've made stairways and hallways one way. We've effectively increased the size of our hallways by eliminating the use of lockers this year at the middle and high school. So while we can't physically make the halls any bigger, certainly saving 2 feet on each side of the hall, where 2 or 3 feet where students will be standing with lockers open, increases the effective size of the hall and also eliminates those barriers and groupings that we're looking to avoid. That's certainly a help. In terms of lunches, Campbell students will be eating in the classrooms, and at Edgar and the high school, we're using, in addition to the cafeterias, we're trying to use outside space as well as gymnasium space where we can, so students can be safely spread apart and outside when possible, so they can enjoy their lunch.
So what are some contingency plans if there are any high temperature readings? And then if there are any positive tests in the district?
Sure. So you're talking about our temperature checks as we come in. So we have contactless thermometers. Any of you who've been to the doctor or dentist or even to stores recently, some of them are using those contactless thermometers. So we'll have staff at the entrances. So before anybody comes into a building, me, you, everyone included, you'll have to get a green light on the temperature check, and you'll have to have completed a questionnaire, a very short questionnaire, but just asks you about symptoms and exposures. Should a temperature, now, I could have ridden my bike to school on a warm morning, or I could have sat in a hot car for a few minutes, or just standing outside in the sun online for a few minutes could make your body temperature read a little warmer. So we're going to then ask the temperature taker to do a second or a third check to ensure that both the contactless thermometer is working and it's a fair temperature. Hey, we may ask you to stand in the shade for a minute or two and then retake your temperature. For those who are experiencing symptoms, that may be a temperature, that may mean the way they look, that may mean what they filled out on their sheet. We'll pull them aside to a tented area where we'll ask them some additional questions. And that'll all happen before either staff or students enter the building.
So I want to wrap things up about fall sports. To wrap up the interview, we've got our fall sports preview coming up next year on the podcast. But, I mean, it's great to see that fall sports are coming back, especially after the spring season had to be halted. And the NJSIAA has put in so many guidelines in terms of just everything. And I know things have gone pretty smoothly in Metuchen. There was the one issue that we all know about back in August with the football team, but you guys dealt with it diligently. You had like the 1 or 2 positive tests there, but like going forwards, I know you had that one small cluster that happened. What are some of the plans to ensure that fall sports in Metuchen are done as safely as possible?
Well, as you've read in my weekly messages, I continue to implore people, if you want a season, wear a mask, right? Stay socially distant, wear a mask. We have the athletes for 2 hours, 3 hours a day. That means they spend 22, 21 hours outside of our care. So they need to take those precautions, the same precautions that we have in place when they're with us, and then they're out in the community, right? Not only are you allowing us to have a season, which we all like to have, but you're protecting your neighbors and your families. Some of the specifics at school, certainly the locker rooms present an issue. So we're not using our locker rooms. We have some protocols where we've been bringing student equipment with them as they've come. Once students return, only, for example, the A-weekers on Thursday will have their gear in the locker room. They'll be checked in, they'll put their stuff in the locker room. B-weekers coming from home after Zooming will be outside setting up. Mr. Cathcart's setting up some fenced areas where we have some kind of changing type areas we hope to employ outside. So we're definitely concerned those indoor kind of close-in spaces. We'll follow all the protocols in terms of spacing, masks on the sideline. Fans will experience will have a different experience. We're gonna, for example, for football, we're limiting the number of fans in the stands. You just can't walk up on game day, hang around the outside and watch the game. We're sorry for that, but we're gonna have the police and security, district security, ensure that we maintain that 500 limit maximum on outdoor gatherings. It'll be by ticketed entrance only. We'll ask all spectators to wear face coverings, and that will be enforced. I was happy to see a bunch of other districts on Twitter. Most recently, South Brunswick just put that out as well. So we're not alone in that. We're trying to do everything that we can to give our kids somewhat of an experience, right? Our students have certainly had a different experience since March, and we want to try to give you the best experience possible.
Yeah, and certainly just the mental aspects of playing your sport too and getting to do it and just getting out of the house after these last few months. But yeah, that was actually my last question. I just want to talk about with, the procedures when it comes to fans coming to sporting events. Is this just going to be like families of the players, or is there any option where students could go? And if not, where is the timetable where that could start to become available?
Yeah, so the time limit, who knows, right? I mean, we're going to take it week by week, day by day, even sometimes. We think we'll probably be okay with soccer, field hockey. We usually have crowds that are less than that maximum number. If we, for some reason, start getting larger crowds, we'll use a ticketing system for those sports, tennis and cross country, those other sports as well. For right now, our concern is around the football games, not because there are more football fans, but because football games seem to be a gathering place. The band is performing, the cheerleaders are there. Of course, family and friends of the players want to come out as well. But also a lot of people like to gather on a Saturday afternoon and come out to see the games. I think we have 3 home games this year. And much like the other schools that will be playing, we'll be using a ticketing system. So 2 tickets will go to a player, and you'll have to use the ticket to gain entry into the complex. I know for some that will be a big disappointment, because for many in the community who don't even have students, or maybe had students here who have graduated, they still enjoy that kind of community atmosphere. We're going to try to live stream our events this year. We've put Wi-Fi out to the boxes, which we tested and went really well for our graduation. So we hope to be able to provide live streaming events for those who can't come. I think that will offset the pain a little bit, but we're going to stay strict to the outdoor maximum numbers that governor has put in place, because it's for safety. It's for your safety, my safety, the player's safety, official safety, everybody.
Well, Dr. Caputo, it was great having you today. I know month of October will be busy. School is back, fall sports are back, but definitely a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes. Thanks so much for coming on today.
You're welcome. Thanks, Eddie. Thanks, Joe.
All right, so when we come back, Josh Hyman will be here. He and I will be previewing the fall sports season. All 7 of Metuchen's teams will be going over that. Till then, I'm Eddie Kalegi. He's Joe Stibich. We'll be back after this commercial break on the Metuchen High School Podcast.
Having trouble seeing the board in class? Do you need safety glasses for your school sport? If you answered yes to either of these questions, head over to Optique Unique, the eyeglass store at 406 Main Street in Metuchen. Optique Unique does it all. Not only do they offer eyewear for all ages, they also sell sports-specific safety glasses for kids and adults. Call them at 732-321-2020. That's 732-321-2020, or visit OptiqueUnique.com. Do you want to build character, build confidence, or even build yourself? All that and more can be accomplished at the Black Belt Institute at 23 New Street, right here in Metuchen. Students of all ages have been able to learn respect, discipline, fitness, and self-defense from their experienced instructors for over 20 years. Whether you're an adult looking for stress reduction or know someone young who has interest in Taekwondo, the Black Belt Institute is the place to go. The Institute takes a fun approach at teaching the rules of self-defense, instilling in their students an I-can-do-it attitude. Interested in taking a class? Call them at 732-205-9797 or visit their website at blackbeltinst.com. Once again, that's 732-205-9797 or blackbeltinst.com. The Black Belt Institute, Metuchen's leader in martial arts and fitness.
Welcome back. After 7 long months amidst the coronavirus pandemic, high school sports are set to return to New Jersey this weekend.
Yeah, it's exciting. There's been a lot of safety procedures put into place across the state. You know, they did that Last Dance World Series back in July, which kind of, instilled some confidence in Governor Murphy and everybody in the NJSI AA that this can work amidst the pandemic. And it's great to see that sports are back after the cancellation of the spring season. So, Josh, before we get into previewing all of Metuchen's teams, obviously you're on the boys soccer team in the fall. Take us through just some of the safety procedures you guys are going through as a team as you prepare for the upcoming season.
Yeah, so some of the procedures we've had is the procedures we did started even back in August when we did before preseason practices. We would come in, we would have temperature checks. We would have forms to fill out on Google Classroom. And for the first week of practices, we would have to stay in our, we would have 6x6 boxes coned off, around the varsity soccer field that we would just do drills in. And then the second week, it was pretty much back to normal. We still had the temperature checks, we still had the forms. And that's what it is pretty much now. In terms of practice, in terms of safety procedures, we're pretty much business as usual. Obviously, we're still doing the temperature checks, we're still doing the forms. But other than that, we're pretty much good, and we haven't had any trouble with it so far. So I think we're just going to keep it going as it is.
Yeah, all right. So I'm going to get into the first thing here with football. I mean, they had their best season since 2016 last year with their new coach, Guy Jensen, who has been the boys basketball coach here for a while. And there's some promise with this team. They had a lot of seniors graduate on the offense, including Colin Qualls, Fred Krebs, and Elijah Irvin. So a lot of their weapons are gone, but Jake Lipinski, Dean Serio taking on some big roles. Of course, Stephen Mihalishin at quarterback has really become the face of this team. Won GMC Player of the Week last year after a game against Highland Park. And they're also in a new conference too. Don't forget that. All the other Metuchen sports teams are still in the GMC, but the GMC and Mid-State 38 have merged for football to form the big Central Conference. Metuchen is in a new division, and for some reason, St. Thomas Aquinas is still in our division, even though they should really be with like St. Joe's or New Brunswick. But that's a story for another day. Other teams Metuchen can certainly compete with, including Spotswood, who they play in the opener on the road on Friday next weekend. Their home opener against Middlesex. They also play North Plainfield this year. They've got games that are winnable for this team. And honestly, in a 6-game season, with, let's also not forget they did have the COVID problem back in August, which has since been resolved. I'd be happy with 2-4. I think that's something you can definitely aim for higher. But I think 2-4, getting used to this new conference and a couple of new opponents would be good to see. And next year with Mihelishin as a senior, Aiden Ahmed as a senior, there's going to be some good signs. But an older defense, there's definitely a chance that they can do even better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And unfortunately, it does seem like we are going to be cursed to play St. Thomas Aquinas again. We're probably never going to shake that for the time being. But yeah, I think even though we did lose a lot of good seniors, a lot of guys on the offense, the team this year is quite sizable. I don't know if you've seen any of the practices. There are a lot of guys out there, a lot of young guys ready to work, and they've been working very hard all summer into the fall. I think there is definitely a lot of promise on this team. And you do have, even though we lost a few good guys, you do have those experienced guys in those key positions, especially in offense. I think 2-4 is good. I think if they go 3-3, I think that would be great. And I don't have any worries really about the team. I think Guy Jensen knows what he's doing. I think he works very well in the chemistry of the team. So, I do have very high hopes for this team. I think they're going to at least win one. I would say 3-3 should be good.
Yeah, certainly. So let's shift it over now to field hockey. They've been the most successful fall sports team in Metuchen over the last few years. They've won the conference 3 seasons in a row. But this year's a little different with the GMC in terms of crowning division and conference champions. Of course, it's a weird year. It's an abbreviated season. But, there's still a lot of promise with this team, and they're going to play hard all through. They've only lost 5 regular season games over the last 3 years, and they've won almost 40 in that span. So that tells you something about this team. They did have some graduates, but they weren't really hit as hard with the graduating class of 2020 as other sports because their best players, Noel Leaf and Isabel Wiener, they're still there. And now as seniors, this field hockey team with Coach McLaughlin, there's a lot to be excited about heading into the fall. And hopefully the one thing that we always talk about with them is that they do so well in the conference, and then when they get to the state playoffs, they play a team that's considered much worse than them that often upsets them. So hopefully this year they can finally break that stretch and go deep into the state playoffs, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. I think they just have to keep doing what they're doing for all these years. And it seems like they're one of the very few teams that is pretty much immune to the senior bug, because we see stellar graduating class after graduating class leave the field hockey program, and then the younger kids just step up and do exceptionally, just as they have done in the past years. And yeah, I think this is pretty much what we've been saying for the past few years, is they do spectacularly in the regular season. They just need to hold the fort down in that postseason, in those playoffs, and really just keep the energy high. And I think if they just play with the same intensity all year round, don't get complacent, don't get cocky, don't let up, I think they could go deep into the playoffs and potentially get a victory.
Yeah, and I attribute some of this young talent to things below high school. There's a lot of opportunities for younger girls to play field hockey in this town. And while you might think more so like football with Pop Warner or soccer with Rec or the Copa team, with field hockey, they're really becoming established as a great sport in Metuchen, that a lot of girls are playing from a young age, and these girls come ready for the high school level, and it's been paying off these last few years. So let's shift it over to soccer now. You're on that team. What do we expect from boys soccer this year? I know last year record-wise wasn't the best, but still a solid season. You lost a lot of seniors, but you have a lot of seniors on the roster this year for the class of 2021. What should we keep an eye out for this year from you guys?
That's a great question, Eddie. I think the boys varsity team is looking very good this year. We just won our scrimmage against Edison on Thursday 4-0. So, a huge worry going into the season was firepower. If we could get those shots off, if we have, we were worried for a while that we just did not have a guy up top, but we've proven now with, people like Justin Wetnick, Jack Fusil, Kieran Subramanian, and as a junior, we have kids on that team that, can get in position, can get into the striking zone and, make some opportunities. And I think another huge thing that is going to be very beneficial for the boys soccer team is the fitness. I know Coach Albanese has been very, very tough on the boys in terms of fitness, doing it every day, doing it throughout the summer, posting workouts. And, the team as a whole came into the season very fit, very, very healthy. So I think that's also another good thing that we have to look out for is because, fitness is just as important as skill, because when you can outrun your opponent, you can just run all over them over the field. And another thing that looks good is the very solid back four. I think, Sada Jaws, Logan Grice, Michael Piavoso, and Eitan Barenfield are really holding it down back there. And that is most likely no. Yes, that's right. So we have a very solid back four. And another thing is that I think was missing in a few years past was a solid midfield. And, if you have great strikers and you have great defenders, but you have nothing to tie together, your team kind of falls apart. And I think that's where the varsity teams really came up short in years past. But I think now we do have that solid midfield to tie everything together to make a good team. Everyone knows to play together. Everyone has great chemistry. We're locked down and back. We have guys that can shoot up front. So I think in my opinion, we are looking very good this year. Especially since we beat Edison 4-0. That's usually a team that we have some sort of trouble with. But, I think I have high hopes for this team. I think we can go very far. I think we can have a solid record.
Yeah, and you mentioned the importance of fitness, and especially this year when there was no spring season, there was a lot of opportunities for athletes to participate in conditioning, just, training by yourself, exercising, just simply going for a run. And like in a sport like soccer, those things can really put your team at a high advantage over your opponents. So nice to hear from the boys soccer team. And it seems like you guys have a nice balanced attack that hopefully will lead to some more wins. Let's shift it over to the girls who, when they came into last year, nobody thought this was a 10-5 team with how many freshmen and sophomores were leading the way. But they did it, and they finished with 10 wins, had a solid year in the GMC and in their division, and now these players are all a year older, and there's a lot of promise with this girls' team. It's so crazy to think that there are so few juniors or seniors on this team, and it's a lot of young players, specifically in the sophomore class. Nico Rockefeller in goal last year was really, really solid. You mentioned like Alex Lipschitz, Marin Boucher, of course, who led the team in goals and assists last year. A lot of young players that are getting older, and after doing so well as underclassmen, 10-5, this program has a good sign to build, because a couple years ago, we didn't really know how the transition would be. This team had some great players. Of course, Maya Stolarski was really the star of this team 2-3 years ago. But once she graduated, we wondered what's next for this program. And they've really excelled. They've filled her place well. And now the girls team, after a 10-5 year, is ready to continue that momentum and do even better in 2020.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we're going to see a lot more of the same, and that's a good thing. I think it's going to be a very good season for the girls now that they're a lot more experienced, a lot more numerous. I don't know if you know this, but I think that the girls are trying to get a freshman squad together. And another thing to look out for is the new JV coach for the girls, Coach Thomas Hurd. He was the boys JV coach for a very long time. He has led the boys JV to many winning seasons. He had the 10-3 season with the boys last year. They went to the semifinals. So I think they're set for this year. But I also think with the addition of a new JV coach and a freshman squad, I think they're really setting themselves up for a lot of success in the next few years as well. So that would definitely be something to keep an eye on as well for.
Yeah, there's been a lot of movement in terms of like coaching and of course like the new freshman team for the girls in the soccer program. It's been a lot of movement with coaches in general at the school over the past couple of years, and they're hoping that these moves pay off. Shifting over to cross country, of course, Coach Halloran, they're going to be great. that he aspires for greatness. They've had success in the fall many years. Last year, actually, the boys, though, was a tiny bit of a letdown, but a lot of the runners who were juniors last year are coming back as seniors that are some of their leaders, such as Romir Anand, Ryan Breen, Jai Dreher, Matt Brown, Arvind Manavanan, just to name a few. And then just thinking about the girls, they were actually ranked by NJ.com 2 weeks ago as the 9th best program in the state for cross country this fall. And they're a team that gets it done with people from all 4 grades. They've got one senior in Bridget Thomas. You've got the junior class led by Sarah Lignell and Molly Maleg. And then, of course, a lot of underclassmen, freshmen, and sophomores on that team. When you think about it, too, how the girls, in terms of numbers, just for both cross country and track, they have not had a lot of runners over the past couple of years, especially compared to the boys. But, you know, even as they've been a smaller team, they've been able to find success. And this year, they're hoping for a similar story. And I think, I mean, maybe we can agree on this here as well. There's going to be a lot of added momentum for the cross-country runners who also do like winter track, because as much as we're hoping for a winter season, we don't know what to expect, especially with indoor sports, if there's a second wave of COVID. And if there's any sport that seems completely unfeasible during a winter season, it's winter track with 3,000 kids packed like sardines into the Thames River bubble. Like, you know, so when you can get out there and run, you got to enjoy it after not having a spring season and uncertainty in the winter. And they're here for fall cross country, and they're probably ready to go.
Yeah, definitely, Eddie. And especially for those seniors, this may be one of the last seasons. As you said, there may not be a winter season. So I think they really do have to come out working hard, come out motivated, and appreciating every second of it. But I really have no worries about the team. You know Holleran. He can turn lead into gold. Everyone who passes through the program will get better, become elite. He just demands such a high level from his kids. And the great thing is those kids will always deliver without fail, even if there are 5 kids on the team, even if there are 25 kids on the team. I think we really have nothing to worry about in terms of the track team. Like you said, the juniors who performed great last year are coming back to be leaders this year, and that is something the track team always needs. As you know, track is a sport where the upperclassmen take a very, very big coaching role when it comes to preparing the younger kids, and this is seen in like the distance runners, sprinters, throwers, everything. So I think combining Holleran's toughness with great senior leaders, I think we can expect great things from this girls track team and the boys track team as well.
Yeah, certainly. Last team, girls tennis, they had a solid year, a little above 500 last season. Sophie DeCoit, a senior, Uma Ayer, a junior, 2 players who will be key for this team this year. They've got some good up-and-coming freshmen as well. And we know Coach Thomas, I mean, he's as well-traveled as any coach in Metuchen. I mean, he coaches all 3 seasons for 3 different sports, girls tennis, boys tennis, and then swimming in the middle of the winter. So he knows how to coach a younger team, and I think the tennis team is, you know, in a good position to find some success with these younger players. You remember just a couple years ago when they had Erica Rems, who was setting some county records as a freshman and sophomore, and they're hoping for someone else to, you know, fill that void this year. But for now, definitely a lot of optimism for tennis, just like every other fall sport.
Definitely. And I think what you mentioned about the younger class is very important to have a good, you know, transition from the underclass to the upper class. You know, they have to progress on time. And I think Coach Thomas can definitely do that. Like you said, he is one of the most experienced coaches at the school. He definitely knows what he's doing, coaching many winning teams, especially in boys tennis, girls tennis, and swimming. So I think at least for now, not as crazy as maybe girls and boys cross country, but definitely keep an eye out for a few of those underclassmen in the girls tennis team, because like you said, he knows what he's doing. He knows how to prepare a team. So I think we can expect good things this season and the next few seasons as well.
Last thing I just wanted to touch on is just how exciting it is that fall sports are back. I'm not an athlete. I'm trying to, you know, empathize here, but like for someone like you who did not have your spring track season for throwing, but now back getting to compete and play, like for an athlete, I was doing an article for the Metuchen Mirror a few months ago, and one of the Little League baseball coaches in this town, Matt Moore, was talking about just how wholesome youth athletics truly are for anyone, whether it's, recreational at 5 years old, doing t-ball, all the way up through high school and into college. Like, especially now, if it can be done safely, it's good for it to be done because it provides a sense of normalcy for the athletes. Of course, the sense of exercise, which is great when we've all become couch potatoes in our houses the last few months. But, it's just good to have this semblance of normality in a way coming back and to provide athletes with an opportunity to play. There's not going to be really as many fans there. It's just going to be a few parents scattered around in their beach chairs. But, just the opportunity to get back on the field and enjoy this fall season and enjoy the weather outside is just the most beneficial part of it all.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really bummed when we couldn't do our spring season because that's where all the fun stuff happens in the spring. You have the big meets, you have the big events, stuff like that. And I am really glad that we were able to come back and do the fall season because especially as a senior, you really want to get all those 4 years in and round off your athletics at Metuchen High School to bang. So I think that's great that I'm finally going to be able to do play varsity, do the senior night, stuff like that. And, we're hoping for winter season as well. But like you said, with track, it's a bit harder. But, I think it's just great that everyone was really able to come through and pull together and really just make this happen. So I think that's great. And especially for the freshmen too, I don't know how I would feel if I were a freshman going into soccer and just be told, oh, well, you can't play this year. You're going to have to wait till sophomore year. That freshman year is so important to, get into the system, get into the feel of the high school game. So I think it's a really great thing to be back. And, I think this has taught me just appreciate every moment you're playing because like you said, last season, it was just taken away, and I think this really has told a lot of people, especially me, just appreciate every second of your sport because you don't know when you're just going to not be able to play anymore. And, that practice where you kind of just half-assed it or you were half asleep, that could have been your last time ever touching a soccer ball, So I think it is really great that we were able to do this. And, a message to all the younger kids out there, a message to freshmen especially, just live every moment of your high school sport, all right? So and take advantage of it fully. Don't half-ass anything, stuff like that. Just have fun, do whatever you can to enjoy your sport.
Yeah, certainly great words right there. So season gets started. Thursday is the first field hockey home game. Saturday the 10th is the first football game. And it got mentioned by Julia in the announcements. The podcast will be helping out with the sports broadcast this year, but it's going to be much more high-tech thanks to the Metuchen Media Club. Ben Solaski, who's a sophomore, has, put in a lot of hard work to make the broadcasts even better with better cameras, not just my phone on a tripod going back and forth in the press box, but the new Bulldog Report is a collaboration by the podcast and the Metuchen Media Club, which will be providing broadcasts of the 3 home football games, some field hockey games, and hopefully if the winter sports hold up, we can get some basketball and wrestling in there as well. But really excited to have that going. We will promote on our Twitter all those Bulldog Report broadcasts and such to get ready for the upcoming fall season. So other than that, thank you to everybody who tuned in, and thank you to Dr. Caputo joining us during this very busy week just to, go over some things because I know there's a lot of going into this unanswered questions and some uncertainty that some students had going back into school for the first time in 7 months. But until next time, we'll be back in 2 weeks. For Julia Hirschfield, Joe Stibich, and Josh Hyman, I'm Eddie Kalegi signing off from the Metuchen High School Podcast, the online radio voice of MHS.